to let Will introduce everyone too, and then let's introduce ourselves to them if we could. So, Will?
Sure. Start. Will Payne, DMME. Al Christopher is at a NASIO meeting, and so couldn't be here today. I think Barbara has been here in previous meetings, but we have.
See everybody again.
I don't think Barbara and Brandy, introduced Brandy. Best Pitch is new to DMME, just came on board 2 weeks ago. Came from private sector and is going to be part of the Venica team. Brandy is DMME's lead for emergency response, energy assurance, and resiliency planning and energy data analytics. Very excited to have you on board.
So when you see emails from Brandy going forward, that's, just want to make sure you're not.
Fine.
Yeah.
Don't delete them.
Gary.
I'm Gary Tepper, the Chair of Mechanical and Nuclear Engineering at PCU.
Michael Lemke, run the Nuclear Environmental Group for Huntington Ingalls.
Andrew Hutton, Jefferson Lab, Accelerator Physicist.
Gene Verchak, past president of the Nuclear Society.
Rich Diddams, Director of Engineering Research at Liberty University.
April Wade, Executive Director for the Virginia Nuclear Energy Consortium.
Woody Lawman, Director of Sales for Navy Nuclear Products for Flowserve Limited.
David Christian, retired executive from Dominion Energy.
Regina Carter, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs and Communications for BWX Technologies.
I'm John Capps, President of Central Virginia Community College, representing the Virginia Community College system.
Ken Ball, I'm Dean of the Volgeau School of Engineering at George Mason University.
Bob Bailey with the Center for Advanced Engineering and Research out of Lynchburg.
And I'm Sean Agnew, I'm a Professor of Material Science and Engineering at UVA.
And Tom Conti, I'm Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy at Framingham. Okay, so before we get on to some of our presentations, we will have a little bit of an adjustment to the agenda, but I wanted to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. I don't think we had a chance to send these out in advance, so if folks want to take a minute to kind of just scan them and see if there's any changes that they might have. Why don't we take a minute to do that?
Thank you.
Folks have for the minutes.
Just a trivial one. On page 2, there's a typo in my last name. Down at
Must happen to you.
I know it does. The second paragraph up from the bottom. There's a CD38.
Yep.
And I will say there's a bunch of stuff in here that's really good minutes, and we probably need to do some follow-up on some of the items that were.
Anything else? Here, a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So moved. Okay, so we're going to move around the agenda just a little bit to accommodate Matt Kellum's schedule. So we are going to start, one of the things we did talk about at the last meeting is the upcoming ANS student conference here at VCU. So we're fortunate today, we've got Daniel Tincher and Sarah Morgan here from VCU who are co-chairs of the conference, and they're going to give us a little bit of information on what's upcoming and what we can expect and potentially how BNEC can support. So guys, I'll turn it over to you. And
A chance to talk about the ANS Student Conference. We've been working on this for about a year and a half now, so it's Our baby, we're really excited to get it over with, but we're really excited about actually throwing the conference. I think it's going to be great. My name is Daniel Tincher. I'm a fourth-year PhD student here at VCU.
I'm Sarah Morgan. I'm a third-year PhD student.
And we have one other co-chair. She's an undergrad. She's actually doing an internship this semester, so she's not available today. But her name is Meredith Ehart, and she's a junior, I believe. The theme for our conference is Nuclear Is, with the blank there being an opportunity for us to discuss the, vast opportunities that are available to nuclear engineering students and the benefits of nuclear science and technology that we all enjoy. So this allows us to explore both the electricity generation side of nuclear power, but also the more less obvious considerations such as medical applications of nuclear science and technology, from diagnosis, treatments of cancers, to food safety, food irradiation. So we're really excited about highlighting to our students all the other opportunities that are available to them with a nuclear science degree. These are the quick facts about the conference. It's April 4th through 6th, of course here in Richmond on VCU's campus. We expect about 450 nuclear engineering students from around the country. We even have some students coming from Japan, South Korea, I think a student from Germany. So the conference has broad reach in the nuclear engineering education realm. We expect about 100 professionals from a lot of the companies here, and also from other companies and universities and research labs, both national and private, from across the country. The conference is 100% 100% student organized. The benefits of those attending would be networking opportunities. Students will present a lot of their own research, and also the projects they're working on. We'll focus on some panel discussions. Sarah will talk about some of those in a bit. And then we'll also have some technical and more soft skills, like the communications workshop in that conference. And it's a pretty big budget for us, at least over $250,000 to get all those people in to throw on everything we're doing. So we appreciate all the sponsorship we've received from all the people interested in this conference. Real quick rundown of what the venues are for this. We'll host our students at the Graduate Richmond, which is just across the street. Nice hotel, it's very great. They're excited about working with us. They're excited about Richmond and VCU, and that's going to be great. It's a pretty small hotel, though. They don't have much meeting space, so we'll host the events of the conference actually at the VCU Student Commons, which is our student union building. We'll host 3 big dinners, 1 dinner each night. So the conference runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So each day we'll have a banquet-style dinner. The first one will be at the Science Museum of Virginia. We're really excited about that. It's going to be, we're renting out a couple of the exhibits as well, so students will be able, and students and professionals will be able to network as they check out the exhibits. We'll also host a dinner at the Altria Theater, and then finally our awards banquet will be at the Main Street train station downtown. So really nice venues. Should be a cool time to network again and to enjoy some good food. I'll hand it off to Sarah for the technical program.
Yeah, so we do have the technical side of the program. Students can come and present their research and get feedback on how their presentation is. It's a really great opportunity to practice presenting. Along with the presentations, we'll have panels so they can ask questions from professionals. Some of the panels that we have are the Glenn Seaborg think tank, so that's going to focus on nuclear waste and like what issues are with it and how we can go forward with that. Economics of power plants, Dr. Sama is actually putting that together. Nuclear policy, where we have a lot of people from Washington, D.C., lawyers. Actually, Rita Barinwall was nominated for DOE.
Leadership.
Yeah, so she'll actually be on that panel. So that's really cool. Importance of the current fleet. We want to highlight that it's not only important to keep the fleet open for the nuclear industry, but also the industries that support the nuclear industry. We can't lose that technology. And then a small modular and a microreactor panel. So that's the last one we're still trying to work on. Some of the workshops we have for students to attend. Alan Alda School for Communication. It's a great opportunity to fix up your communicating skills, and it's Alan Alda, that's awesome.
Unfortunately, a lot of the students don't really know who Alan Alda is, so that's I know communication thing to inform them.
Intro to data science, so it will stick with like Piney, but also Scikit and TensorFlow. Just teaching students an introductory course on these. And nuclear material security. So Canberra is actually bringing in a ton of equipment for that. So students will get chances to have handheld detectors and actually use it to identify different materials, as well as a fool the portal monitor like activity. There will also be 2 poster sessions at the conference if students don't want to do a 15-minute podium presentation, and we'll have tours. So some of the really fun tours are the Newport News Shipbuilding and Framatome, their mock-up facilities, also Surrey Power Station, Hoopty, and of course Hardywood is another tour, because you need to have some fun Richmond stuff. So one thing we're doing differently this year that's never been done before is we are trying to give back to our community by throwing a high school fair, a science fair for high school students. So we have this opportunity where we're going to have all of these nuclear universities and nuclear companies come, and we want to show the high school students in Virginia that they have a job in nuclear, specifically at home. So I know I've emailed, I think, a lot of you guys here about this, but if anybody wants to be a part of this, this is a great recruitment opportunity. We are bringing in high school students from across the state of Virginia. And thanks to Matt Kellum for actually getting me a lot of the emails to contact you guys, and also April Wade has helped a lot with getting the word out on this event.
So we're really excited about this event. I think it's this is the first time the student conference has ever been in Virginia, and we're really excited about showcasing a lot of the nuclear industry that is in Virginia. I think we're lucky to have so many resources available to us right here to reach out for all this. So I think this is going to be great for VCU, going to be great for Virginia as a whole, and all those nuclear-related activities in Virginia.
And another note on that, part of this high school fair, an important thing to show these students is you don't have to go get a 4-year degree to have a job in the nuclear industry in Virginia. We do want the technical programs, we want the welding programs, we want the technical schools to come to this event.
So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer now, or...
Have you engaged with the Nuclear Energy Institute in Washington to assist in any way on this? And then specifically microreactors, small modular reactors, they have some presentations and information on that. I don't know if you've engaged in any
Yeah, so we have some representatives coming from NEI, not for the small modular reactor, but I'm still putting that one together, and that's a really good suggestion.
Yeah, they've got a presentation on that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I know we have Harsh Desai from NEI coming down. Is anyone else from NEI coming?
What's her name? The artist?
Oh, she's from Third Way.
Third Way.
Right.
Susie?
Susie, yes. Yeah.
Is there any other ways that I know you've already in touch with a lot of the organizations, companies here. If there's other ways that NECA can support you guys? I know we're kind of in the home stretch here, but...
I am still looking for people to fill out this fair, the science fair. So we have a lot of cool things coming. Oak Ridge is bringing a full trailer that has like manipulators students can play with. VCU is bringing the car, SAE formula car. But I still need a lot more people to come and to bring interactive displays. We can't just hand high school students pamphlets because they're not interested in that. We need fun, hands-on things.
Could I make a comment?
Yes.
I organized an accelerator conference in Richmond in 2015 and tried to get Alan over. And when I saw the bill, I went, no.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed that you got it.
Yeah, we actually had somebody come in last minute and say, we'll pay for you to have a second one too, but we can't get enough students interested.
Yeah, it's we're trying to figure out how to make it sound more exciting. We're very excited. We want to attend.
Every professional that signed up has been, hey, can I do this?
Right.
Tell them to talk to their parents.
Maybe I know you've been working with April, but on your request, Sarah, maybe there's a way, and we can work with Will and April, just to make sure that within our companies and organizations, if there's other ways we can help in this final month, make sure you have our contact and reach out to you. This looks like it's going to be a really great program.
I'll speak about a little bit more of my update, but I cannot praise these two enough. They are two great people to work with. I've taken them here to Richmond to visit with legislators. They've met last year with the governor. This year they met with the lieutenant governor, secretary of education. They are just an amazing group of students to work with. They do a great job representing the industry.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
About the A&S students, this was our third year taking some VCU A&S students to on the Hill during the legislature to talk about issues regarding the nuclear industry. They did a great job. They were definitely very supportive of our 17th energy cluster legislation. They actually got up and spoke at several committee hearings. They're just, when we take them on to meet with legislators, they just listen. And one of the things that they kept asking, and the kids, I say kids, I mean, it ranges from undergrad to getting their doctorate. You know, they really planted some seeds about how the need for research in the state. And so they do a really good job representing the industry. It's a pleasure working with them. So, in fact, several of the legislators, for Delegate Garrett, he always made sure to come up to talk to them about the whole process of where we were at with the 17th cluster legislation. He was always happy to see them in the audience. So they definitely made an impression this session. They always do a great job, but this session they made a huge impression. One of the things I think I've mentioned before in past meetings, we've been working with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. It looks like we're putting together a conference on advanced technologies with them to educate the state what other opportunities are out there that the state can be engaging in and attracting more businesses here to the state. The thought process is what does Virginia need to have in place to attract these technologies? It's great that we are right down the road from DOE, but what else can the state be doing to attract these businesses and these new technologies? So that is something you'll hear more from us about. We will be putting together a meeting with companies, and we're still in the starting the planning stages. Probably early summer or late summer, but it'll be in the next few months. We want to have some things prepared and a plan to go if we need anything in next year's legislature. So that's that. Briefing state officials. To go along with that, we are going to continue meeting with state officials and talking to them about the industry and updating them what's new in the industry and what we have here. I think sometimes here in Virginia, like anything, you just get used to it. Originally, I'm from New Mexico. Oil and gas is a big thing. Everybody we don't understand what it provides for the state. So, but we're really putting a lot of effort in it. People understand what the nuclear industry provides for Virginia and the long history that the state has and how to continue that. And also it helps when we're looking at legislation or other programs we want to implement in partnerships, just keeping everybody updated on where we're at. We're right now doing a push for membership, so some of you will be hearing from us again. But we really think that we have a legislative working plan that we're putting together for this year, again, to prepare for next legislature. But we had and I will let Matt talk about this more. Matt has been my partner on the workforce issues since I started with VNEC. Like the first meeting I went to 3 years ago with VNEC, I met Matt, and we talked about what the state needed to do for workforce. And we spent a lot of time meeting with people in the governor's office around the state and talking about the 17th energy cluster. And to that fact, I think it really puts us why we were so successful during this legislature. I'll let Matt talk more about our success and where the bill is at. But I will tell you this, not one person voted against our bill. Not one person spoke up against our bill. And both Matt and I were pleasantly surprised. But we really think that it has to do with the fact that we spent a lot of time the last few years educating people on the need for our 17th energy cluster. So with that, Matt Kellum is going to talk to you about the 17th energy cluster and our legislation.
I was listening, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of important people here, and I see some familiar faces, so hello to everyone I know from work or other meetings. I don't have a clicker, but
I can advance.
Okay, next slide if you don't mind. So before I get into some of this, let me at least just give a quick intro, and April, please wave at me when I'm getting to certain points in time. I'll try to go quickly. For those who are not aware, our industry has an organization called the Center for Energy Workforce Development, or CEWD. They are based in DC. They, again, represent the industry nationwide, website being cewd.org. But very simply put, they bring together industry associations, all the top trade associations, educators, secondary and post-secondary, government, and community organizations to do two main things, and there's a lot of other stuff. But one, to create better awareness about the careers that we have in our energy industry, and then also to either promote and or implement energy education that would lead to those careers, or training of some sort. So that's very simply what it is. About 60 to 75% of the states in a given year have a state level consortium, and that is what I am the chairperson of here in Virginia. We are the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium, or VEWC.org is the website. And many folks in the room, I'd say maybe half at a quick glance, are actually part of the VEWC. So again, same purpose at the state level, but as many of you all know, at the state level, we're able to really drive home activity and results. So quick history real quick. 2011, 2012 is when I got very active in the VEWC, and a couple of things that we did is we did a bit of an assessment on what was the workforce demand, best we could do it, and very manually with our members. So we got a decent picture of that, enough to get the ball moving. But then the other thing that we looked at is while Virginia has excellent education, no doubt, secondary, post-secondary, what it did not have, at least at that time, was energy-specific educational pathways, be it at the high school level, certificate, associate, bachelor's, etc. There were a few, so in the room, don't fuss at me too much, there were a few, I think, postgraduate programs, UVA, Tech, ODU, but nothing really for that entry-level, stackable pursuit of an education. So, the other thing that I will give you, just one last thing for a little background information. Some of the educators are probably very familiar, but at the Department of Education level, so you're talking about your secondary education, you actually have 16 national clusters or industry clusters that are recognized in education. And those clusters, the ones that I'll refer to are manufacturing, architecture, construction, agriculture, STEM, but then you also have other things like hospitality, food and beverage, cosmetology, things like that. Those were determined 20-some years ago by educators nationwide. Virginia recognizes all 16, so not all schools deliver all 16, but somewhere in the state all 16 are recognized. What happens is, and this gets to our workforce demand and talent pipeline needs, is that energy career pathways have been hidden all this time under manufacturing, architecture and construction, agriculture, and STEM. And so that makes sense from the standpoint that we have shared and transferable skill sets and pathways. However, that did not do our industry any favor when we want parents and students to easily identify with not only our careers and our industry, but then how to easily get there. So I'll pause there. So basically, then what we have been working on through the VEWC is, well, how do we change this? And in this instance, and to April's point, and 4 other states have done this, but we wanted to make sure that we implemented foundationally a cluster that was specific for energy. So I won't go through all this, but basically we've gone through, as April alluded to, we've gone through some series of meetings over the last few years with the governor's office, the community college system, which does have a role to play, the DOE and their leadership, and thanks to April and really VNEC being probably one of the best partners, so all of you all in this room, the best partners to the VEWC in this effort, was able to employ some folks that were able to help us push legislation. I think next slide, please. So I'll pause here for a second. So basically what the progress has been, and then I'll talk a little bit just about these slides, what the progress has been is we have House Bill 2008 and a Senate Bill 1348. They both say the same thing. They're a paragraph long. They ask for, I think, 80,000 total, not separately.
Well, the 80,000 is separate, but it's in the governor's budget for a one-time fee to fund
and she says it better than I do. But anyway, there's money involved, but not a lot. And really what that money is for is to make sure that the DOE can allocate the right resource and implement the IT portions, et cetera. But long story short, and totally unopposed, we are all the way through the legislation, the voting, and really, I guess by March 26th, midnight, the governor, unless he has some objections, hopefully will be signing, and we will then be moving forward with implementing this 17th cluster. I don't know what that means to you all, but to me that means a very significant step, and I see Mr. Katz, we've partnered with and talked with CDCC and some of the other schools here. That's a huge step, so that if we can catch these students as they're coming out of 8th grade, deciding what they want to major in high school, well, now energy is a very definitive option that they can see and touch and pursue. So this is not, obviously the 17th cluster does not exist yet. However, what you see here is a proposed, breakdown of what the pathways can be. So all of these are careers in our industry, and all of these I did not make up. They currently exist in those 4 clusters that I rattled off: manufacturing, architecture, agriculture, STEM. So the DOE, probably about a year ago or so, said, well, Matt, nice idea. We'll tell you some things that you need to know along the way, but what would you propose it look like? So knowing that engineering and design and construction and technology and systems operations and plant operations and technicians, those are kind of our high-level critical needs across all sectors of our industry. And we've talked to a lot of folks on the renewable side, generation side, construction, power delivery. So all I did is I took what's already out there and I just said, well, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I would kind of lump them like this: engineering and design, construction technology, plant systems and operations. Now again, this is not done yet, this is just a proposal, but this is how I envision the pathways, within the cluster could exist. Next slide, please. So this is a bunch of stuff. Really, this slide deck, thanks to...
Not you have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Ask you a question on the previous
Yeah,
slide.
I'm sorry.
As you're dividing those up, do you look at what level of education is required? Is that another way? So for here you need a bachelor's, for here you can do an associate's degree.
That's a really good question. Can I come back to that in just a second? And that's kind of what we were talking about on the elevator up, so I will touch on that quickly.
Okay.
So I'll come back to that. Next slide, please. You don't have to, you can reference this at your leisure, but basically what I want to point out, and again I might come back to Mr. Katz as an example, but currently the Department of Education has 3 energy courses on its shelf, or that 8 high schools are offering, and that is also some of the work that the BEWC has been successful with. That Energy and Power course at the top left, the framework for that course is called Energy Industry Fundamentals, or EIF. That is a course that CEWD and all of its members came together and said, this is a course that we believe will properly introduce a student studying some sort of technology, engineering, IT, and everything in between. That is an introductory course that will make them aware of the industry. And oh, by the way, it is a certificate in and of itself. Now, does it teach someone how to turn a wrench or engineer something? No. But what it does show is it recognizes a credential, and it shows that that student has expressed an interest in our industry. So again, I'll leave it at that. The other good thing, and the BEWC cannot take credit for this, the DOE had already had them out there, but renewable energy and then sustainable and renewable technologies are also offered through the DOE to these technical schools or whoever at the high school level wants to deliver them. One thing I can say is that the BEWC does now partner closely with the DOE, so when they want to do curriculum review or course review, they will look to us or folks like you all to come to the table and then kind of provide that industry advisory type of session. So we are doing that as we speak with the renewable energy course. The last thing I'll point out here is on the community college side. So while we're doing all this work over the last few years, really since 2014, is when the Energy and Power was approved by the DOE. We have also been working with the community colleges to try to get, and we have, a certificate level education into the community college system. So for those who may not be familiar, basically what this refers to is stackable credentials. So if you're getting credit at the high school level, some of that might be recognized by the local community college. Let's just say you go off to a community college, well, then you can continue to stack your credits towards a certificate, an associate, a bachelor's, and so on. The beauty of that type of model is you, the student, can hop on and hop off as they choose to go to work and or continue their education. So again, leave it at that. But using Central Virginia Community College as an example, one of the things we recognized is no matter what successes we do or don't have at the high school level, we have to at least also be able to offer energy-specific education at the community college level, and that is what the Energy Technology Certificate is. It is, by design, it's a one-semester, 15-16 credit certificate, has the same energy industry introduction, basic instrumentation, basic hand tools, college and applied math, and some design and a couple other things, but all things that would prepare someone for an entry-level position in our industry. What I want to point out, though, is two things. One, that certificate theoretically can stack to some other associate degree programs, but also not forgetting why I'm here is the 17th cluster. A lot of these courses are also offered in our technical high schools and would probably be a part of that 17th cluster. So it is quite possible that a high school student going through this 17th energy cluster could also be earning college credits, these certificates, maybe even an associate's, because it's not uncommon for high school students to graduate with an associate's before they actually walk for their high school diploma. So all of this said, we are trying to build an energy education pathway that will create that awareness and hopefully prepare students for our industry. I won't get into all of this. You all probably know some of that. Next slide, please. So as it pertains to the energy cluster, the 17th cluster, assuming the governor will sign, these are possible next steps that I really frankly just put these down for my own note, because when the DOE comes calling, Department of Education, not Energy, when they come calling, we need to be prepared for what might we recommend and what might be our resources. I won't go through all that, but what will be important, and if I can come back to your question, so what is extremely important, I know all of you all can appreciate this, is the industry has to be able to show what is the workforce demand. So we've got a great energy plan for Virginia. That's great. Chamber of Commerce is a partner of ours, Office of the Governor and the Commonwealth. But now we have to be able to show not only what is the demand at the state level, not just from a company like Dominion Energy, but we have to be able to show our contractors, suppliers, and everyone else that's part of our industry. And that's where I'd like to be able to follow up with some of you all after today. So we have to show the demand. And then we have to be able to show, okay, well, indeed, these career pathways that Matt Kellum proposed, engineering, ops, construction, power delivery, those are the ones that we want. But we need to make sure we're addressing gas, solar, nuclear, all the sectors. And so anyway, that's kind of what this slide represents, is what does that next step look like? What does that planning look like? To answer your question, as a result of the workforce demand information, it will be very important for us, the BEWC, and probably our community college partners to be able to put together career pathway and career ladders that show what is the entry point, what's the possible progression, so forth and so on, and then what's the level of education that you need to get there throughout your career.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it from the perspective of, I have an 18-year-old nephew who just has no idea what he wants to do. He thinks you have to have a college degree or a PhD to do anything, and I'm trying to steer these kids, and we see it now, where we don't have plumbers and welders and electricians that we need at the level to build a nuclear plant. And, bright kids at this age could do that and be ready in 5 years.
So really kind of full package, and we're doing a lot of things simultaneously. I feel like the education piece that we're finding some success with now, knock on wood, Governor signs it, but we need to have that education to point to. At the same time, we need to be able to tell them, well, here are all the careers. You can go to four-year school. If you want to be an engineer, at least for Dominion, you do have to have a four-year ABET accredited degree. But everything else and all these other great potential earnings and long careers, I'm the fourth generation of my family to work for Dominion. We had an electrician, an engineer, project manager, chemist all in one. I don't know how that happened. My dad worked at Chesterfield for 45 years, and then me. I ended up in HR, and thankfully it took me 11 years for people to finally start liking me. But point being is there are all those opportunities, and all of them provide great careers and good earnings. And that's the picture that we have to paint for them as we pull all this together.
I need them now, but I'll wait.
And Matt and I
We
have.
needed them 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Matt and I have been stressing that throughout all of our meetings and educating legislators. I've been on the road since I think Thanksgiving, educating legislators with Matt as well. And we always make sure we don't just talk about the PhDs and stuff. We talk about the importance of the skilled labor just as much, I mean, if not more sometimes.
And if I may emphasize, I'm sorry to interrupt you, that is important, that is why it's important for the workforce demand piece. So what is happening next, I don't know if any of you all know Sarah Dunnigan, she's now in the, on the community college systems side. She is the Director of Labor Market Research and Strategic Partnerships. We've had conversations and we will have a meeting sometime in the next month to actually sit down and frame out. We have a pretty good idea from our partners up at CEWD what sort of industry codes, occupation codes, like what are we looking at and what do we want to measure and tell. But at that table might be some of you all, contractor side, supplier side, energy side, at the table saying, as an industry, this is what we need, and this is the type of jobs that we have, demand that we need to be able to pull from your fancy systems that Matt Kellum doesn't have access to, and then we need to tell that story. And oh, by the way, this is where you go and get that education along the way. And if you want to come out after high school with those certificates and make $20-some, $30-some an hour at some of our companies, plus overtime, then that, again, that's where these are the steps that, and it's a snowball. The snowball is growing. It's full speed ahead, and I think a lot of things are going to start to fall in place here in the next few months and over the next year.
And I just want to point out, when we were working on this bill and during the legislature, it was one of the good things is that, the oil and gas industry stood with us, the wind industry stood with us. We did it as a collective group. We may have been pushing it along, but we had a good diverse sector of the energy industry together standing up for this legislation. And that was a huge plus as well. And the Virginia Chamber was supportive of us.
Well, to bring it back home to the purpose of this group and this meeting, honestly, like none of this would have happened without April and the team that she has in VNEC, the working body. I just provided a little subject matter, and it was really April and her team.
Yeah. No.
So,
I'm all done.
Well, yeah, it's an additional comment.
Yes.
That when we talk about the importance of this cluster, you emphasized how it helps you promote these careers. But we probably need to also emphasize that this helps you get and allocate resources, both at the state level and the federal level. When they make decisions about allocating workforce dollars, they look at these clusters. So for example, if you had a high school that wanted to put an energy program in place and they want to use Perkins dollars, when they write their Perkins grant, they have to say, here's the career cluster. And it's much cleaner to tie it into a cluster than it is to say, I got to make an argument for why the manufacturing cluster or... So it really helps.
And if I can
ask for those dollars.
I will sound like a broken record. You're probably going to have to escort me out the room. I cannot stress enough, and it's evident here in a good way, we have to have our industry partners at the table in these smaller meetings with Sarah talking about demand, in showing up in the classrooms when the students need to hear from an industry representative to really paint that picture, make it come to life, et cetera, et cetera. And I know we will do that.
One of the conferences we had, and I don't remember if it was the one we did with NEI or just when we did one with business and educators on what we needed, what does the industry need, and one of our speakers.
I may say, Mr. Christian was kind enough to keynote that.
Yeah, he did a great job. But Bob Granata from Newport News, he said something. He said we need to make this industry exciting, and one way to make it exciting is they know what the jobs are, and it's a clear path, and that is something I think that is very important. That I do believe the governor is going to sign it. We work pretty closely with his office and the Department of Education. Nothing is a sure thing until it's done, but I think this is going to be really good for the state and for the industry as a whole.
How will you know you have been successful?
In a month or in 5 years?
I'd say a few years' time.
I think,
what are you looking for? What's your metric for saying this was a success? Look, I've improved.
No, that's a great question. So, as it stands now, and the way that I would answer your question today, now this can change, but measuring is obviously a huge piece of any business, any activity. The BEWC, we are not, as a consortium, we're all volunteer-based, we are not yet focused on us managing or administrating some sort of measurement tool. However, as we work with the industry partners at the table and part of the consortium and the DOE and the community college system, then we will work with them to say, what is enrollment, what's the graduation rate, what, best you all, the school systems can tell, and oh, by the way, industry, what is your input on how is this working? So that is to be determined, but we know what we need to measure,
I think you're missing one, which is, are you increasing the economic impact?
Understood.
In 14, I mean, there's a financial input to the state.
Sure.
If there are workers here and companies want to bring business, and that's the one that will get you money at the state level.
Understood. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, we do not lose sight of the economic impact that this has, though that's not our immediate focus. But point well taken. I do appreciate that.
So,
yes.
I just had, it's less of a question. I know you, April, thank you for VNEX's work on this. I know the partnership has been great. I also just, Matt, I want to thank you personally because I know you've driven a lot of this.
Oh, sure.
And I guess one, kind of two requests I would ask of you. Stay in touch with our group, and if you want to come back in a year and talk to us about how things are going, we'd welcome that. So, or we can, obviously, April gives regular updates at all our meetings too, so we can do that. But the other thing I would ask is, so knock on wood, it's signed by the governor here in the next month. Once that's completed, I think the information you have in this presentation here is really, really valuable. If there's maybe, I know at one point when the legislation was being launched, we kind of had April I think had a one-pager describing it. If we have that once it's signed and getting ready for implementation and what the goals are, that we could get around to this group. I was just thinking of, this would be great. We have a lot of contact with policymakers and others in the industry. Colleen had mentioned, internally with her company, being able to share and socialize and promote this so that things like, as there's resources that are needed from the state or federal level, I think that would be, I'd personally like to help with that. So.
Absolutely. Anything that you all want on those two or other topics, I'll probably follow April's lead, but yes, I'm happy to provide any of that.
Yeah, Matt and I, I think we're both kind of like, okay, we're here, so what's next? So we're still like kind of, he's reached out to some people. We know we're going to have to sit down and talk with the Department of Education. But I don't know, I think both of us feel a little differently than we did even a year ago. They're so open to have the conversation that it's going to be, Matt will probably need to be back here. I'll have him come back in a few months to give you an update of what the process is. I mean, the state has to put some stuff together to get the empty cluster up. It's not going to be right away. It's going to take a little bit of time for them to do it administratively, but we'll be working with them to make that happen.
So one question. So you, on slide 3, you described all of the careers that you drew from existing clusters.
Yes.
So what is the plan to flesh that out with careers that do not exist in, say, health physics, for example? Doesn't exist in manufacturing?
That is a good question. That's a I guess input that the industry at the table, when we are working with the DOE, will have to provide. And frankly, what I think will probably happen is the main courses that teach those pathways, and if you notice, except for nuclear engineering, most of those pathways are pretty transferable across, manufacturing, construction, et cetera. So, and then it's really and I'm pointing to the top left, it's those courses where we might determine what might the specific energy courses be. frankly, what I think will happen, and I know, I think it's Stephen Bradley, is that his name? Health physicist side with the state or city. Anyway, health physics comes up quite a bit. But what I think will happen is the demand will dictate, okay, well, where are the volume of positions? Not that health physics is not important, but is that what we need to focus on at the high school level? And if yes, if no, then, okay, what are they also getting for continuing education? So keep in mind, these pathways are opening eyes, introducing and preparing probably for your entry-level positions. But if they want to go certain specific niche routes, we have to at least be able to show them where you then go after this. And I think the after this is where they would get specific health physics type education, but we can paint that picture based on demand and kind of that ladder model.
One of the things that might be useful for, and not today, but when for an update, would be for us to just see how some of the existing clusters are being used by the schools to do the same thing. So even though it's a different cluster, it's an example of how this can be deployed.
So just real quick on that note, it might be good as we're working with Dave Eshelman, who's the newest, but I guess the code director as they're phasing in and out. But Dave Eshelman might be good to come as the state CTV director and share that kind of information with you. At some point, I then lose and don't.
Because we get out of the theory into what can we really do.
Yeah, and he actually comes from the Cumberland, right?
Chesterfield,
district. And I think I was actually thinking the same thing. He'd be a great one to come and speak to us. I have a couple other people I can think of too. Matt mentioned Sarah Dunnigan. She gave us some marching orders about 3 years ago, and Matt and I really stuck to that plan. And her and Megan Healy, who was at the Virginia Community College System, now she's in the governor's office. They really helped us along the way to get where we're at. So I think we have a few people that we can reach out to do exactly that.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that would spark some ideas.
True. Yeah. Questions, thoughts? Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you all very much. I'll hang around a little bit, but then I might scoot at a break or something. But thank you all very much.
Thanks, man. Into member updates, I just wanted to share something I put together earlier this year for internal presentation. But we talked a lot about kind of forward-looking. Sometimes it's good at the beginning of the year to look back, and I thought it was interesting to see there was actually a lot of activity last year in the nuclear policy arena that actually got over the finish line that I just wanted to kind of share with everyone because it was all the way throughout the year and into the beginning of this year that some really good activity happened. So there was an extension of the production tax credit for advanced nuclear facilities. The full 6,500 megawatts had not been fully utilized, but now that's been extended. And it could apply to things like small modular reactors, other advanced reactors in the future. There was 2 federal appropriations bills that were passed last year because of the delay in the 18 process, but pretty significant increases year over year in the nuclear R&D budget around reactors, fuels, advanced technologies. So it was 20% increase over fiscal year 17 for the 18 budget, and then a 36% increase in the FY 2019 budget. The Department of Defense launched their microreactor pilot program, which they're right in the middle of. I imagine a lot of folks at this table, their companies are engaging on that, where they're looking at microreactors for both installations and mobile applications. And then 2 pretty significant pieces of authorizing legislation around kind of advanced technology and regulatory framework. The Nuclear Energy Innovation Capabilities Act and the Innovation and Modernization Act. Really important for licensing for advanced reactors, and then also some of just long needed reform for the NRC, both the licensing process and then also the fee structure. I think what was interesting about that too is it was really a collaborative process with the NRC itself. So And then finally, there was still activity at the state level. New Jersey adopted a zero emission credit program that will support the nuclear facilities there. In Arizona, there was a ballot initiative that was likely to see the closure of the largest nuclear facility in the United States that actually was voted down. It was by a 70% margin, which I thought was very interesting. And then finally, in Connecticut, the Millstone nuclear facility was deemed an at-risk plant and will now be part of their zero energy resource program there. So recognizing its carbon-free attributes. So just wanted to kind of, sometimes there was a lot of other things along with that, and if folks have things to add, but I just wanted to highlight a few of those things because I thought it was some significant advancements last year and laying the groundwork for some more activity going forward. With that, were there any updates that members wanted to share with the group before we kind of move on to the new business and other things? If not, that's okay. So one of the things we talked about at the last meeting as it relates to the annual update, it was the industry asset inventory. We've included a copy here. What we would like to do and what we had talked about at the meeting is having this as an ongoing agenda topic so we can review and identify any updates. What we will plan to do, rather than going through and line by line updating this right now, is you'll see the top sheet here with, if you see any changes between now and the next meeting, please send them to Lynn, and maybe Brandy, we can actually have you on copy of that as well. And we can get that updated, and then we will send out the link with the agenda going forward. So if there are updates or discussions we need to have at future meetings, so we can keep this up to date and it's not an end of the year activity. So I just ask you take a look at that and pass along updates. I've already seen a couple. So. And also, I would just add, if there are additions, right? So this was first created a number of years ago, I guess a couple of years ago. And so I imagine, we've got new companies that have come to the state and are more involved. So please make additions. Okay. So. Before we get to the speaker list, are there any questions on the asset inventory? Okay. We've also included a chart of kind of the UNECA membership status and history. The reason I bring this up is there's actually a couple of seats that will be coming up for renewal or renomination or new nomination later this year. Will, do you want to talk about the process for this?
Yeah, sure. The appointments should be filled by beginning July 1, and so we'd like to know those who those who are interested or eligible to be reappointed to their second term, or to some of our folks are filling unexpired terms, to please let us know as soon as possible so that we can advocate on behalf, or if we need to look for a new member if you're unable to seek reappointment. But our goal is by April, end of April, to report back to the Secretary of the Commonwealth on your interest.
So DMME will be reaching out to all of us individually that may have expired terms, but just take a look at this, keep it in mind, and if you'd like to proactively reach out, feel free to do that as well. Okay. So last year in our meeting, we started, I think, a productive conversation about additional speakers we'd like to have at our meetings. We've included a list here with kind of the topic areas that folks that we would like to try to invite to our meetings, like Matt here today, and the students, Daniel and Sarah. So please take a look at this list. I know we've already reached out to Ann Phillips about our next meeting and coming and talking a little bit about some of the initiatives around climate change that she's leading for the governor. And what I would also like to, we're also reaching out to the offshore wind and solar and energy storage authorities to see about a representative from those groups to come and just kind of talk about what they've been up to, maybe hear a little bit from us and how there might be opportunities for collaboration between the authorities. So that's kind of the targets for our next meeting. But if there are additional names, I'd like to just open it up if folks have thought about other items. And then also, at some point, we may be coming to you to help us with recruiting some of these speakers, because I know there are folks that have relationships with these people that may be able to help with encouraging them to attend. So were there any other names that we wanted to add to this list, or other suggestions folks had? And if not, that's fine. I mean, I think we've got a pretty good list started here. So, and we've got some targets for the next meeting. But I just wanted to make sure everybody had this in front of them, and they can start thinking about additional potential speakers that we can invite in the future. So if you have ideas, please either shoot them to me, or you can also send them to Brandy as well. So the last thing is, we also wanted to try to be a little bit more proactive this year in scheduling meetings. So what I would like to do is at least come with a general idea for the scheduling for the meetings for the rest of the year, right? So our charter is we try to meet quarterly. So I would anticipate, looking at the maybe May-ish time frame for the next quarter, maybe sometime late summer or September for our third quarter meeting. And then I think November makes sense for the end of the year, both from finalizing the report and then, but also not getting into the holiday season. But what we would like to do is go ahead and do the if there are. Well, let me ask this first. Does that sound, those general timelines sound like those are reasonable for folks? Then I think rather than trying to look at everybody's calendar right here, what we'll ask Brandy to do is launch doodle polls for all those time frames and try to get on our calendars sooner rather than later, so we can block those times. I know it's always easier to look further out than try to do things at 1 month at a time. So that's what we're gonna target, and so keep an eye out for those things. So that's gonna kind of bring us to the end, but I wanted to open up for any new business or items. And I know Dean had mentioned when we're doing the minutes, I think we covered a lot of the topics, but if there's things that we left off.
I think that last time we did have a lot of discussion around the influencing the governor's policy and getting engaged on that. I mean, we expressed disappointment that some of our edits didn't get picked up, and so I think that the idea of engaging with Ann and getting more on this idea of providing our input to state policy, I think is something we need to focus on, and not just let it let it drop off the edge.
And on our end on that, I can give you an update. We've been working on trying to get a sit-down meeting with the governor for a while, but for one reason or another, it hasn't happened. But I was just told this week, we should be doing a one-on-one meeting with him, probably the first part of April, the end of March, after he gets done signing legislation. So hopefully on the next meeting, I'll have an update for you on that. We will invite Tom to attend that meeting with us as well. If there's anyone else that's interested, just let me know, but that is what we're gonna be, that's one, that is to answer that question.
Okay. If I may, I'm a little bit out of sequence. You know, we have a new dean for School of Engineering, Dr. Mark Horstmeyer, comes from Mississippi State. And his prior career was at Los Alamos. He spent 15 years there.
CMD.
Yeah.
CMD
Yeah. Right, that's right. And he's going to, in January, we're looking to open up master's and PhD programs in a variety of additional engineering disciplines. Part of his focus is to work with industries to help in doing types of various applied research from the TRL 1 through 9 levels that will allow us to work close with industries. Some of the companies we're already working with is Gramatory BWXT. So let's just put his name out.
Maybe next meeting. April, this is a question for you, but also for the group. So I think most of us, she's on our list, and probably a lot of us have had the opportunity to interact with Rita Barenwall. Her nomination is supposedly getting cleared by the committee tomorrow to be the Assistant Secretary for Office of Nuclear Energy. That is great, but the floor vote is going to be the harder part. Has there been any thought of, or would the group support maybe a letter to to the Virginia delegation in support of her nomination? I think that would be I mean, that's really this focal point of R&D for the nuclear industry is out of that office, and having some actual appointed leadership there would be really, really helpful.
I'll get it done. I mean, it's an easy thing to do, so I can get that done really easily. I apologize for not even putting that on my radar.
No. Honestly, it's just the only reason I ask is for reasons that are not any fault of hers, right?
And please,
there's been hang-ups with getting her nomination approved, and I think reiterating support, especially with the senators from Virginia who are in the similar party that's put a hold on her nomination in the past, that would be good. I think hearing from our folks.
I mean, on some of the federal legislation last year, we definitely commented on, but I can get something out tomorrow, if not this afternoon. I'll try this afternoon.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And if you guys see anything like that you think that VNEC should be commenting on, please just always contact me. I'm good, but I'm one person.
Anything else? Okay. Well, then at this point, I will open it up for public comments.